know anybody who knows much about it? I can't remember. Because I thought we did it like.
He's the guy. Oh, it already went through your committee. Did it go through your
I
committee?
thought it. See, I'm not. I can't. I can't. We didn't do it at the last hearing because that was the budget. I don't believe that was there. But I actually came late, so I don't think it was on our agenda. I think it was on like a meeting before.
So it went through judiciary.
I think
So
so.
you would have only gotten that stuff one year.
Right.
Twice.
Right. Usually when we put it in the packet for this meeting,
Clerk's
for the
office should have had it.
okay.
Because you would have had it because you met him. You would have met him at your committee meeting.
See, I don't remember those meetings. Like I said, that one was it wasn't on the last meeting. We dealt with the budget.
Call the meeting in order. If you'd all please take your seats. We may be waiting on one or two who are still getting their flu shots, but we'll proceed as the time is past 7:30. So if you join me in the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance. Supervisors, press your P and plus for attendance. I will note that Supervisor Ron Johnson is on vacation today, and as most, if not all of us know, it's unfortunate for me to have to announce that Supervisor Vice Chairman Eckerness is not here. His wife passed away this weekend, and certainly our thoughts and prayers go out to he and his family. So Supervisor Johnson Eckerness will not be in attendance. It looks like the rest of us are here. We are missing a couple. One more. There we. Oh, we're still missing one. Who are we missing here? Bill, Supervisor Michael. You're registered? There we go. 26 in attendance. All right, at this time we will open up for citizen comments. If you are wishing to address the board, please approach the microphone and I'll need your name and address. For the record, you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Yes, sir.
Mark Montague, 7835 36th Avenue, Kenosha. We're here again tonight to speak about the layoff that's still ongoing in the Highway Department. I think it was last meeting that I came to you and discussed and asked how much time we were going to waste before we start bringing these individuals back. We're pretty positive that number from the deficit has been satisfied, and we're wondering when our people are going to come back to work. It's going to be November, and it's going to be snowing soon, and we need time to get these guys back in. They've been off since June. They all have 2 weeks to come back, but we're still waiting for notice, and we really need that. And I think everybody in this room really needs that, because every one of you guys is going to have a phone ringing that this isn't done or that it isn't done. We've been doing the best job we can. Basically, with half a crew, we're punching in with less than 30 people. And if you guys see the county executive, I'd really appreciate if you ask him if and when the Highway Department 14 are coming back. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Danbeck, nice to see you.
Good evening. Bob Danbeck, 7626 27th Avenue. After listening to the radio today, it was unbelievable what I heard. One of the committees last night said, oh, we're going to give ourselves a 50% pay raise in 2 years. But we're going to cut the health benefits, and they're not going to put it, they're going to put it off until 2012. This is what I heard on the radio. Chrysler is closing this week. Largest taxpayer in the county. And yet a committee is going around and saying, I'm going to give myself a 50% pay raise, and we're not going to cut the health benefits, when the majority of you that are sitting on this council have on the record said the health benefits have to go away for the part-timers. Yet you're going to still hold it on for another 2 years? Unbelievable. I mean, they even said, well, we're going to save $100,000 on the radio today. 100,000 of what raise that you're going to put on the taxpayers in the county? Absolutely ridiculous. You're working on the budget right now. I'll tell you how you can get rid of that health insurance. Line item it out of the budget this year. And I know there's going to be a lot of spin and say, oh, you can't do that because of this and that and everything else. Baloney. You can cut a line item out of the budget without any repercussions at all. We got other entities in this county that are saying, the heck with you people. I've been retired for 7 years now. I'm going on the second year now that I will not get a pay raise in my Social Security. That's unbelievable, and yet you're going to raise my taxes? Let's be responsible to the taxpayers. There shouldn't be a pay raise of any kind. You got 28 of you also sitting on the council, and yet, Mr. Chairman, you said, I think it was 4 years ago, that we need to downsize the county board. Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to get the city council to downsize, cut themselves in half, and that will require you by state statute to downsize the city portion of the county board. We got a county to the south of us that's not in Wisconsin. And I know that you've put all kinds of spin on everything else, while we got other counties of like size that got the same number of supervisors. Does that make it right? Are you being responsible? No. You're not. We don't need a county of this size to have 28 supervisors. Period. You got to start being responsible. Yet nobody is. Look, you're raising our taxes. You can't even televise this for the local community at a cost of $2,100 a year. But you're going to say, oh, I'm saving $100,000.
Mr. Danbeck, the proceedings are televised. That's what we're doing here this evening.
I know they're not televised live. But you can televise them live by paying $2,100. Period. But you don't do it. City Council is not afraid to be televised live. But you people are. You can't do it. You can do it. But you won't do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to address the board? Seeing no one else moving to the microphone, citizen comments are closed. At this point, I'm going to ask Sean Smith from the County IT Department and Lieutenant Faldudo? Captain Faldudo to step forward. I've asked through Marty Laycock, wherever you'd like, if you want to come up, that's fine, to give us a brief presentation on the broadband initiative that is part of the budget. I asked for that to be done because it is a significant initiative within a 2011 budget that I'm concerned if we wait until budget time, there may be questions that are better served to hear directly at this point. Go through the presentation, gives us an opportunity to ask some questions and have some answers provided if necessary, so that when it comes time to address it, vote on it, we are all familiar and understand what's being proposed. So with that, I'll turn over to Mr. Smith and Captain Faldudo.
Good evening. So what we wanted to do is just give you a little idea of what this project, some of you may have already heard about it.
All right, Mr. Smith, I need to interrupt you.
Yes.
If I could ask you to go to the microphone, please, so that I'd hate for the delayed broadcast not to be picked up on the radio or TV, and I know that I'm getting some feedback from the radio press here that they're not being picked up. So if you could, please. Thank you.
Yep. So the relay stations are going to be able to extend the coverage so that we're going to be able to go out there, and if we do find problems with locations where there may be a dead spot, we're going to be able to still effect a change there easily with these relay stations. We're going to have data transmission standard. It's going to be like regular internet speeds, what you experience if you use a cable modem or something like that at home. The cars will actually be out there with comparable data speeds to that. That really opens up the type of applications that can be used and what type of utilization we're going to have. Another thing is we're going to have peer-to-peer communications, meaning that as you continue to extend out where you're transmitting and where you're going to be receiving this data, we're going to be able to use the cars as actual relay points. So we're going to be able to continue extending that range. One car can actually use another car that's out there as a relay point. And those are going to be mobile, able to deploy and help us out. Some of the key drivers to this, one of the big things is the network speed. That's one of the biggest things that we can do here, and it's going to be able to help us, is that we're going to be able to deploy more applications, streaming video. There's already applications out there where the squads have video in them, and we're going to be able to look at that and give that live feed back to the dispatch center.
As you guys know, approximately 2 years ago, we were able to obtain some funding from Senator Cole, which allowed us to put brand new camera DVR systems in all our marked squads. The systems that we chose were specifically chose because they had the capability to stream video over this particular network. So as early as 2 years ago, the department was also trying to put infrastructure in that would lend itself to these types of applications.
Some of the other capabilities we're going to have is being able to send maps or blueprints electronically to the squads or the fire department. It's going to give them real-time information about the building they may be needing to get into or where they're deployed at. It's also going to give us telemedicine and next generation PSAP, which that's the public safety application that's going to help them because they're going to be able to take advantage and leverage some of the technology there.
Right now, our mobile browser is limited in its capability by the amount of speed of data that we can transmit to it. What this would do is this would allow us to use more complex mobile data browsers in our car. For example, we get a mugshot right now. It takes anywhere from 30 to 45 seconds for that mugshot to pop up in the car. With this system, it would take 3. And that gives you 27 seconds to look at the picture and figure out who you're dealing with. And that just lends itself to officer safety.
Some other benefits to this, there's going to be a security enhancement here as well because we're going to be able to meet new standards that are coming out that are constantly pushing and increasing the overall security to really protect everyone. One of the biggest challenges is making sure that you have the technology in place to meet those new standards. There's a lot of new technology out there that we're going to be able to take advantage of to meet those standards. Control. This is one of the biggest things that we get out of this is we're not going to be dependent on a third party. One of the other applications that some places may use is, they're deploying these data cards that you can buy at US Cellular or something. One of the problems with something like that is you have a lot of the holes in that network, and when you need to fill that hole, you're relying on whoever that data provider is to fill that. Well, we're not so big that we can go to AT&T or US Cellular or any of these others and tell them you have to put up new towers for us. We simply wouldn't have that type of leverage, whereas using some of the technology, the relay points and the mobile command or the mobile point-to-point, we'd be able to control that and increase our range and our coverage.
And another issue, having worked Country Thunder during the 2 major storms that we've had out there, as soon as those storms hit, every cellular phone that was out there, 20,000 people on the phone calling to let loved ones or whatever know what's going on. Well, that's typical of any kind of emergency. And if you're dependent on cellular cards for your data communications and you have an emergency and everybody else is on the phone, your card's not going to be able to say, well, we're law enforcement, we have precedence. You're going to be competing for that data stream with every other phone out there, and you may lose communication when you need it the most.
And then, as I was talking about the coverage, we're going to be able to deploy coverage. We're going to be able to identify the dead spots and directly address them. We don't need to wait on someone else to do that. So the different phases of this, there was the original project. There was a grant submitted in the fall of 2009 for $6.35 million. Part of that grant required a match from the county. We were not awarded that grant. However, we've been able to take the funds that the county already committed and start progressing through this. The county approved the $1.3 million, and what we've been able to do is use the radio equipment for the 16 pre-existing towers. There's also going to be modems for public safety vehicles. Both the city and the county, they're going to be funded through this. Some of the future phases that we're looking at, we're going to be looking to implement a fiber ring C and a fiber ring D. What those are going to do is provide us redundancy. So when you look at the map at the back of this, you're going to see fiber rings represented by A, B, C, and D. When you look at A and B, both of those, anything in that range has redundancy that's going to allow us, if something happens to the communications at one of those towers, we're going to have redundancy to get back and still communicate. In C and D, we're more limited. We don't have that same level of redundancy. And what we're looking to do is, over the next 2 years, increase our communications there and get that redundancy so that we're not going to get hit with something and lose communications. It also adds more opportunities for internet connections. So these are the key factors in the phase there. What we've also done is we phased this in where we're going to be, it's saved us about $3.25 million. And we've done that by using internal labor rather than a grant requirement. The grants required several levels of additional reviews, and Captain Falduda, you know a little more about those.
Basically, what the grants required us to do is the grants pretty much required us to get an outside consultant to help us put the system up, and that would have cost significant dollars. It would have also required us to do multiple studies that really we didn't need to do because we believed we had the opportunities to test the system ourselves. So by doing it in-house and working through with the contractor on this project, we were able to save a lot of money that if we would have gotten the grant, we'd have spent that we wouldn't have really needed to.
So current activity that we have going on slide 6 there, the initial phase of the project is to demonstrate the feasibility of this in an urban setting. The challenge of any type of wireless, one of the key challenges of any wireless communications is being able to get around the buildings. So one of the big things that we're doing here is we're going to be deploying 3 tower locations. They're going to provide coverage from downtown to Summers to Bristol, and we're going to be able to test and verify that we're going to communicate, find out where there's dead zones. This is going to be a pretty significant project for us. We're going to have 10 mobile units. There's going to be 20 relay stations that are going to fill in the gaps. And we're expecting this to complete in the 4th quarter of 2010. So additionally, pending meeting acceptance, we're going to have 13 remaining towers to complete in 2011. So one of the additional benefits here is this is multi-purpose. This infrastructure can be leveraged for more than just the public safety. It can also be leveraged for internet service. We're going to be able to use the same architecture and equipment. It won't require additional investment. We're going to be able to utilize the already identified towers. And then we're also going to have, it's going to communicate on a different non-licensed frequency. The key point there is that we're not going to be disrupting the public safety frequency, those communications. Just like Captain Faldudo noted, during Country Thunder, 20,000 people are making phone calls. If we're relying on those data cards, you're disrupting that. Whatever we would do here uses a separate frequency, and it would not disrupt or interrupt that communication at all. One of the big things with this is the county or government will not be the one providing that internet service. We provide the infrastructure for it, but a third party would provide that last mile. They would provide all of the typical ISP type services, the internet service provider. So the kind of service is similar to WiMAX, and what that does is it really lets us push out the boundaries of where you get good internet coverage within the county west of I-94. So the last two slides, 9 and 10 there, or 8 and 9. 8 shows you the fiber routes in the towers. On there you can actually see the A, B, C, and D. What we're going to be looking for, like I said, is with ring C and ring D, we're looking to get the redundancy out to those locations and out to those towers as well. And then slide 9, that just kind of gives you an idea of how the communications work. It shows you that we're going to have that base station with the 4.9 gigahertz. It's carried on a fiber backbone back to the courthouse. That's a lot of the work that was done at the beginning of this year, is getting all of that fiber network in place. And that's really helped. It's increased the overall availability of the network, and it increases the speed and everything else. Sets us up for the future very well. And then you can see it communicates with the other towers and the other relay stations. The cars can help communicate and stretch that boundary as well. Are there any questions?
That's it. I will open up for questions. Before we do that, I want to make one comment. I was surprised, and Mr. Smith, you pointed out the significant cost savings for this particular approach. I asked the question of Mr. Laycock last week and followed up on it again, how we could be saving $3.25 million to phase this project in, and I was very surprised to find out that the requirement of the grant was to use consultants in certain forms and fashion throughout the process and the installation, as well as the design of the infrastructure, to the tune of millions of dollars. Just seemed ridiculous, and told me that I was clearly in the wrong line of work. So from my standpoint, we could always make the argument that we spent $1.3 million to leverage the balance of the 6.35, but when you understand that the bulk of it is wasted when we have the staff in-house, for me anyways, it makes sense. I'm not selling the proposition here. I'm just telling you, if it moves forward, I think this is the right way to do it. So I appreciate that insight. Questions? Supervisor Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the points that's been made about the service to the western part of the county is to be able to provide the citizenry with wireless internet connection. Seeing that this dark fiber is the backbone, would it be necessary to have ring C and D completed to do that, or would it be able to be done just with ring A and B?
It's capable to do it with just rings A and B. So, but one of the keys here is that the ring C and D, what we're getting out of that is the redundancy that's needed. Another aspect to that is when you're out there, we're using a microwave to communicate back to here, and the microwave does not provide nearly as stable a communication. So once you start pushing the cars out there and you start using that service, it's going to significantly reduce that.
Basically, where you don't have fiber, you use a 5.8 gigahertz microwave to transmit the network to the tower that is then converted into 4.9. Radios are subject to environmental conditions. They're subject to power outages, where fiber buried under the ground is a much more stable, secure, and carries much more bandwidth than a microwave transmitter would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Looks like Zerban.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question regarding this third party to provide internet services. I'm unfamiliar with WiMAX. So could you give me a little bit of insight? Is this a company that would be providing an ISP that would charge for services to people out in the western part of the county?
Well, real quick, the third parties, we haven't actually identified anyone as the third party. WiMAX is actually a technology that what we would be doing is comparable to. So it's just another wireless technology that's out there. It's deployed in rural areas a lot of times to provide this type of, to the residents or to businesses, get them broadband connectivity when the other services aren't available. So WiMAX is really just like you have a cable modem, it's just another way of delivering it. It's just the technology. And then the third parties that would be out there, they would be out there to help. There's everything that goes along with being an ISP, providing email services, getting you onto the internet, billing you, doing all of that type of thing, getting your equipment set up, customer service. But the WiMAX is a technology.
Basically, what would happen is, because the infrastructure that the county's putting up would be available to them, the third-party provider would be able to set up internet service to households at rates competitive with what people are paying from the cable companies and AT&T with competitive speeds. It wouldn't be like a Wi-Fi where you could pick it up on your computer. You would still need a modem inside the house to connect with the tower. But what it does is it provides businesses and private citizens in Kenosha County west of the I broadband speeds, and with today's economy, the more technology that you can provide to people, the more likely that they may come to your area.
Right, I understand that, and I support that concept, but then you're also having a private enterprise who's using county-funded infrastructure to go into business. How is the county going to benefit from this, aside from the fact that it's going to be bringing more business? I mean, are we going to be able to charge this provider a certain fee?
The ISP provider would be paying us for the use of the towers and the bandwidth, and then they would be charging the last mile.
Thank you.
And keep in mind, the other key point that was made is the public safety aspect of it and the connectivity that we're talking about there as well.
It's just a benefit.
The argument is that it could be that it's not the benefit, it's in fact the need, and the other is the benefit.
Benefit.
So
That's what I'm saying.
thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you.
Supervisor Rose.
Do you see any other benefits to economic development from this system that you haven't already mentioned?
Well, I mean, basically, if we're going to make broadband available out in areas of the county that aren't not served or underserved, what that does is it makes those locations more palatable for business to come in, because every business in the world needs broadband internet now. You're not seeing any businesses start up right now that are using dial-up modems. So it's a benefit to the county. It's a benefit to the ISP provider because we're doing all the hard work and getting everything set up for them. But then we don't want to be in the business of selling internet to the public. We believe that should be done by a private entity.
Thank you.
Supervisor Hallman.
You've talked about the coverage in the scope of this project and the speed. Do you know of any other counties in the state of Wisconsin that currently have this, or would we be the first?
This is pretty groundbreaking technology. 4.9 is used in about 7 spots that I know of because I've done the research. We would be the first law enforcement agency in Wisconsin to use this technology.
Anything else, Supervisor? Supervisor Clark.
Hitting on what Supervisor Zerban talked about is really the economics. When we, I think when we did phases A and B, or those first 2 rings, I think there was another company that was involved that maybe absorbed some of those capital costs. There were other partners. I believe Gateway Technical was invested in this. I believe Kenosha Unified may have been invested in this. I believe Parkside may have been invested in this. And I'm just wondering if I understand the argument for the public safety. I was also expecting to hear all this economic development that was going to happen because of this. If it's there, I would expect that there would be a partner that would want to step up and invest in this as well. And I have, we'll just say, some reservation that we're going to do this and somebody's going to piggyback on us. As far as the economic development goes, I don't know. I mean, it's just, when we go to these bonding trips, we talk about this triangle in Kenosha County is in certainly a perfect spot, but when I look at the development corridor in Kenosha County, you can look and see where the top taxpayers are coming right now. It's the Lakeview Industrial Park along the interstate. It's the city industrial parks. Not that they're not going to go west. If we're doing this for economic development, I'm afraid the technology may pass this by. So I would like to see a partner pony up that's going to invest in this, and whether it be, you know, I would have thought I would have heard something talking about how this is going to help education and are the school districts wanting to invest in this out there. I know in Pleasant Prairie a couple of years ago, or maybe eight years ago, they did a ring and they put $1 million up, and a provider came in and put everything else in. So I guess I'm looking for a partnership as we had in phases A and B, and why we're not getting that partnership.
So we don't have anyone who's offered to invest during the initial aspect of this, but we have been approached by some schools and some other companies talking to us about once it gets there. But right now, we don't have anyone that's offering to help fund it.
Does the administration believe that we may recoup some of our cost on this investment when they take it to the third-party provider?
Some of the initial investment?
I think the budget plan calls for a $900,000 investment this year and $900,000 investment next year.
Yes, and I can't speak to if what some of that's Marty Laycock would probably be able to speak a little better to that. But as far as what's happening and some of the relationships that are being developed, I know that we've had people talking to us, but nothing has been put in writing or nothing specific is out there yet.
Okay, I want to thank the chairman for having this presentation to hopefully educate the board. There have been some questions, hopefully when it comes to the finance committee or building and grounds committee, if this falls underneath there, hopefully some of those questions are available, and Mr. Lecoq may be in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Decker.
I see on page 9 you have where it will relay from the base station and to a public safety vehicle, and then possibly to the next one. Does the daisy chaining of vehicles affect the speed?
No, it's going to provide the same speed.
Okay.
So at a certain point, I mean, there's always a loss of speed as you get farther away from your point. So, but as far as the going from one vehicle to another, that does not negatively impact it outside of just the distance from your relay point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Noble.
Yeah, my questions were with regards to economic development. Some of them have been answered, but the only thing I can think to say is, has anybody done a model of what we expect to economic development to gain out of this, as opposed to if we didn't do it? I mean, do we have any projections for economic development?
There's not a model that we have right now, no. I know that we're still figuring out some of the potential partners that we have in this, and once we understand a little more about that, I think that those kind of models could be put together more effectively.
Thank you, Supervisor. I wrote a couple of notes here as we were talking, and Supervisor Noble touched on the first one, and that is when this gets to the budget discussion specifically related to the IT capital investment, and in this case, the fiber optic, I would like to understand, have some projections, some assumptions on what the potential economic development impact is going to be. When you talk about some of the outlying communities, you talk about Summers and Bristol and Paddock Lake, they have a limited opportunity for accessibility, but not enough, in my opinion, that allows for the development to grow and to spread. And you look at the Bright Tree development that took place in Paddock Lake, that's the type of business that will locate it in a smaller community, that will bring a significant number of employees to a development that doesn't have to be on Main Street or on Highway 50 or in Lakeview Corporate Park, but that is significantly dependent upon high-speed connectivity. That's where I think the benefit is going to come. When you talk about the infrastructure that will be in place and the third-party provider that comes along, you know, I can dial this back to just the simple building of my home in Summers, and I was far enough outside of the utility of gas service, so they wanted 10 grand to bring the gas service to my house, and they wanted $3,500 to bring cable to my house, without any way to recapture it as part of the problem. So what I'd like to understand when it gets to the discussion at the budget meetings is a little better feel for why it makes sense for the county to do it. My belief is that it makes sense because it is cheaper for the county to put in the infrastructure because of the our concern or our payback comes from the third-party provider coming in and selling the product. Their payback has to be built off of what it's going to take them to buy right away and install the infrastructure. So I think you need to be prepared, whomever is going to make the presentation next week at the budget during the budget discussion, to talk about those issues. That's where the economic development comes in, and those are the types of businesses and the types of locations that I think this helps. But you guys would need to be able to speak to that a little bit better. And of course, the public safety aspect is something that we've been struggling with for years, and I think speaks for itself in most levels. I see one more light. Supervisor Zerban.
No, I just wanted to reiterate or bring up, I think our conversation's got a little one-sided here, but I think first and foremost is the public safety aspect of this improvement to our county infrastructure as being the most important, and any kind of economic stimulation that might come as a benefit from it is great, but anything that's for public safety and getting better information to our first responders, I think, is something we really need to have upgraded if possible. Thanks.
Well, and again, to that point, this may be something you want to bring forward. What is the cost simply to address the public safety aspect of it? I'm not saying you have that answer tonight. What's the upcharge to go beyond, which is what you're asking for here? What do you perceive to be your payback, and why does that make sense to us to support it? So if you could maybe have that answer as well. Supervisor Gable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question is, this is a Wi-Fi network, wireless basically, and I worked for the phone company for years, and businesses want their own fiber. We're not going to be providing that. We were providing a small business wants Wi-Fi for his whatever, but like I say, a major business is going to look for their own fiber and their own fiber ring, and we're not going to be providing that, right?
No, and really, this isn't a Wi-Fi technology. That is a pretty important distinction, and it's often, they're thought of the same. Wi-Fi is like what you get when you go to Panera and you're sharing that with other people. But to what you're talking about, really what we're doing is we are providing a dedicated connection for that person. They're not sharing their connection. And just like at a telephone company, anybody who has a connection through the phone company all comes back to a central office. And then they do have a shared connection from that central office out. And that's what we're doing here, is we're going to provide them a dedicated connection from the tower to their location, and they're not sharing that with anyone else. It's only the people that they have there, and then it's only shared once it gets back to the tower. which is comparable to what anybody is doing now. The cable companies or the, DSL, anybody. It always has to get back to that central location where it's aggregated, and that's what happens with this as well. It's definitely not like that Wi-Fi connection where you are sharing with anyone who happens to be able to pick it up.
Thank you. Supervisor Kohlmeyer.
Just for clarification, you guys mentioned earlier about some of the benefits going from 35 seconds to 3 seconds. Do those benefits already exist in rings A and B, and now we're going to add it for C and D, or is this something that will only be added once we add rings C and D?
The rings are basically the redundancy and the support for the microwave transmitters that would be in place until the rings come in. Then you would have a dual redundancy. Currently, right now, we have that between 45 and 50 for our radio system. We have a 6 gigahertz microwave transmitter between the public safety building and the main transmitters at 45 and 50. We also have fiber going from the safety building to 45 and 50 as well. We have an electronic switch, for lack of a better term, installed in our radios at 45 and 50 that when they detect the microwave going down, they can switch over the fiber and vice versa. That's the type of redundancy that we want to look for with rings C and D, is to have the ability to either be on the microwave or the fiber, depending on the situation. If the power goes out at the tower, the generator will be able to run most of it. But if we've got fiber, that's one less thing the generator has to run. So it's more about redundancy. Without the rings, we could probably still make the system work, and I believe it will work. The fiber is just there for the added security of the system.
Part of what you asked there, though, I just wanted to follow up. That's what we're looking at for the fourth quarter right now, though. Getting that capability with those 3 towers, that will all exist within rings A and B. So in the fourth quarter, when we're talking about current activities and getting those towers, that kind of that beta setup, that test and trial period, that's what's going to happen within rings A and B. So we will have that, the plan is by the end of the fourth quarter, we'll have that capability with 10 of the squads.
We're actually installing the first modem in a squad tomorrow morning. So that's how fast we're moving on this.
Any other question? No. Supervisor Michael.
Thank you. On page 6, we talk about these towers, and there's 13 remaining towers will be completed. Do we have final costs of these towers? Are these towers going to be leased from individuals?
What we've done is we've asked the company, which is called HireCom, which is the provider of the 4.9 system. They are rolling all these costs into our maintenance agreement with them. Rather than us having individual contracts with all these different towers, they are going out and negotiating whatever cost the towers are. Then they're going to roll all that into the maintenance agreement with Kenosha County. We will only have one contract with HireCom, and HireCom will be in charge of maintaining all the agreements with the towers. Some of these towers Kenosha County owns, and they won't cost us anything. Other towers we're getting at very, very decent rates. So, but all this is going to be rolled in, and then when those costs are determined, we're going to sit down and figure out how to recoup some of these costs. It's very possible that the entire cost of the system could be recouped when the ISP provider comes online, and it won't cost the county anything for any of this.
Do we have any idea when we're going to get these numbers for the maintenance and when all these agreements? Because I just don't want to have sticker shock and we're expecting one thing and everybody's expecting a low price, and it comes in and it's substantially over budget, and we're going to say we should have thought of something else.
They are in the process of working out these agreements right now. Besides the 3 towers that we're already going to put up this month, they're working on the other 13 towers that need to be handled. And again, not every tower is going to require a payment, because a lot of these towers are owned by Kenosha County or other government entities.
Can I have one other follow-up?
Absolutely.
With the 13 towers, has there been any studies done to make sure that 13 is going to be the right
Well,
number
see-
and it's not gonna be 25 or?
Well, we're talking 16 towers altogether. The wisdom of this system is the relay. The towers themselves are strategically placed so that they can cover the maximum amount of areas. However, there will be blind spots. We know that with any kind of radio system. Wherever we find a blind spot, we can put up a relay. A relay is probably smaller than a piece of paper. It's probably about the same size as your wireless modem at home with a couple antennas sticking out of it. It can be put on top of a fire station. It can be put on top of a power pole. It can be put on top of a street light. They're that small and they're that rugged. So the relays, the benefit of the system is the towers are the main infrastructures. The relays are used to fill in all the gaps, and at the end of the day, you have total coverage.
And the main purpose of this is for the fact that we need this for our squads.
For the public safety, more than just the squads, fire, medical. It'll serve more than just the squads.
Okay.
This is going to give every public safety entity in the county the opportunity to have broadband in their vehicle at every scene they work. So if a fire department needs to look up a special procedure, they can jump on the laptop and pull up that information. Law enforcement can communicate with just about anything, and it opens the one of the PSAPs we were talking about is voice over IP. You know, if you've got a Time Warner phone, that's basically voice over internet. We'll be able to do that between dispatch and the cars so that they'll be able to talk to each other and nobody can hear them. Secure communications from dispatch to the cars without a guy using a cell phone, without having to type it onto a screen and the officer having to look down on the screen to read it while he's driving. He can be talking to dispatch from the car securely on the way to a call to get the information you don't want to put out on the radio.
And we've talked about this as being used in the West End, but this can also be used by the city of Kenosha for their fire and also their police or law enforcement.
The first test is actually mainly set for the city. We've already proven the concept in the county in 2009. Now we want to go into an urban environment and find out how it reacts there as well.
Is city government on board?
City government's on board. They're installing 5 of these modems in their cars at the same time we're installing 5 in ours.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Michael. Seeing no other lights, I trust there are no other questions. Just judging by the insightfulness of the questions, the number of questions, I would suspect that it was worthwhile having you guys here, so I appreciate it. Mr. Smith, Mr. Faldudo, Captain Faldudo, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And I do urge you to follow up with the questions so that you've got, gentlemen. Thank you. Captain Faldudo, I just want to make sure you follow up with some of those questions so that the answers are available at the Finance Committee meeting and you're ready to discuss it further. Thank you. Announcements of the chairman. I have just a couple. First of all, we'll start with a light one here. Hope Council Halloween Party at Kemper Center is coming up. It will be this Friday, October 22nd from 7 to 11. Past most of our bedtimes, I'm assuming. I go for a couple hours starting at 7 anyway. See the county clerk if you'd like more information, and I believe she's got tickets as well. So that's the Hope Council Halloween Party at Kemper Center on Friday, October 22nd. I put a, meeting minutes. There was a message in each of your packets. I want to urge all of us to make sure that we're diligent about getting meeting minutes out on time, get them posted to the website. I've had a couple of conversations even this week with some constituents asking about the budget, wanting to know when particular meetings were, committees met, etc. I answered what I could over the phone without having it in front of me, but urged them to go to the website. And I certainly want to make sure if we're telling people to go to the website to look up information, that the information is there. So we need to make sure that we get those minutes posted as quickly as possible. If you're going to have a delay in your next meeting from one to the next, you may want to look at posting some draft minutes. I'll leave that to your discretion to some extent. I know there was great discussion about draft minutes and approved minutes when the issue came up here a couple years ago. So let's make sure we're diligent about that. There was an article in the paper yesterday about this drug that is being used in place of marijuana, which is called K2, I believe. I'm familiar with it. I've had some discussions about it with my brother, who is in law enforcement, and others. The article in the paper gave me reason to bring it up here tonight. I'm going to ask Supervisor Kubicki and the Legislative Committee to look into that issue a little bit further and make a determination as to whether or not the county board should take a position on that particular product in Kenosha County. It is once again a clear intent to provide a product for a use that it shouldn't be used for. There isn't any other way to look at that. The way it's displayed, the way it's sold, what it's sold with, anyone who tells you otherwise is simply not being truthful with you. So if you would take a look at that, please, and I would urge you personally to come forward with a proposal on that. Finally, the budget process. I put on your desk tonight, I'm sure most of you have seen it, the press release that was issued here back, I believe the date is October 8th. I want to reiterate here tonight for the board the commitment to stay within that 2.75 recommendation that we came forward with in June. The leadership of the county board is committed to it. We have had extensive discussions in it. I talked with the county executive as recently as this evening. He is recognized the position of the county board. I assured him that we respect the budget that he's put forward, the initiatives he's got included in the budget. I understand that he supports a great deal of what he has in it. He has also assured me in return that he will work in tandem with the county board to bring this budget in where we'd like to see it. So I anticipate over the next couple of days I will have some further discussions with him. I will try to draw the chairman of the county board, I'm sorry, vice chairman or chairman of the finance committee into those discussions, and we will share as much information with you as we can. I'm going to again stress to the committees that the hard work is in committee. It's in the finance committee, and I have no pressure to put this on the budget on October 9th and 10th if we're not prepared to do it. And my inbox is full of emails. My phone calls are there, so I'm going to urge this board to work very diligently in the committees to see if we can't bring this budget more in line with at least where we believe it should be as a county board. Yes, sir. It could very well be. What did I say? October. November it is. I stand corrected. Thank you. November 9th and 10th are the dates. That's all I have. Clerk. I'm sorry, it is not the clerk. It is supervisor reports. Anyone wishing to give a report? Supervisor Elverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one item. I think I reported on our budget before. On last Saturday, we had our first open house out at the park we're developing at Highway KD and F, and it was very well attended. Highly praised at what the county has done out there so far. We're going to do another one. That was a beautiful day. Hopefully we'll still have good weather on the 30th of November. So anybody that can get out there, if they have Highway 50 done, it would be easier for most of you folks to be able to turn on Highway KD. But if you haven't been out there, we had many people in and out. We have some snacks and things. There's fishing. Bring fishing poles. Bring children. Bring dogs. There's about 5 miles of hiking trails, and plenty to do if it's not sub-zero. So that'll be the 30th of November from 8 to 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Elverman, and again, thank you for all of the work you've done with the park, your tenure here and your involvement. It's by all accounts, it was a good Saturday and a lot of positive feedback. Supervisor Kubicki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Legislative Committee met earlier this evening, and we were presented with the Corporation Council's budget for 2011, and it was unanimously passed by the committee at the committee level. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Noble.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last night, the Administration Committee met for a marathon meeting until 11:30 at night. And in that meeting, we had a detailed review of the 1392 union contract, which we we passed it and moved it on to the Finance Committee. We went through the personnel budget We also went through the reclassifications in line or in service reclassifications. Several of those we denied. Some we did pass. Those again those recommendations were made to the Finance Committee. We went through all the miscellaneous budgets like workman's comp and insurance, and we made a $90,000 cut in the insurance, and that cut would be, if you all know that all employees that work for Kenosha County, if they take the health insurance, are eligible for either an $800 if they're a family or a $400 for single contribution to their flex spending account. We actually budget $750,000 for that contribution that we make to all our employees. So in effect, we are giving our employees money to take our health insurance. It was the committee's feeling that that needs to come to an end, and of course it has to be negotiated out of the union contract. So the beginning of the end starts with the non-rep employees, which is a $90,000 cut in the budget, which will help get us from 5% down to less than 3%. That passed unanimously in the committee and has been recommended to the Finance Committee. We had a grievance, and that was part of the evening, and the county board compensation was passed 4-0 by the committee. It basically was a substitute resolution by Supervisor Gens where she did an analysis of the costs and so on, and in effect the resolution that was passed, assuming that the same number of people are on the board that will, in the next term that are on in this term, and I say that because we do have the opportunity to reduce the number of supervisors in the next, before, the next term starts. But the projection is that it would be $100,000 savings with Supervisor Gens's resolution as compared to what we have right now. And it would eliminate the health insurance for county supervisors. It would allow for a pay increase of $3,000. Supervisor Frederick had mentioned that in 20 years, I think he said that the pay has increased for county supervisors by $400. So if you take the last 20 years into play, it wouldn't be much of an increase over 20 years. As far as a citizen's comment regarding this budget, we had, as a committee, part of the reason why we delayed is we wanted to get an AG opinion on whether or not we could change the compensation for an elected official in the middle of the term. And it's not as simple as just, deleting a line item out of the budget. And it was a consensus. Supervisor Frederick has agreed that he was willing to even drop that out of his resolution. Our corporation counsel tells us it could be another 6 months before we got that opinion from the corporation, from the AG, and it just basically became a moot point because pretty much the consensus was you can't change it. At least that's the consensus of everybody that was at the meeting last night. So, having said all that, I don't want to make this another marathon meeting. I think I'll conclude. But I will say that the committee did want to, so we don't mix up this county board compensation, we're going to bring it forward after the budget is passed, because we feel that the budget is far more important than something that doesn't even actually come in. So I'm assuming it'll be like the first meeting in December. We'll have the county board compensation resolution before you. Thank you very much.
Point of clarification, that Supervisor Gail Gens is who brought forward the resolution last night, just reporting. And also, to further clarify, because I see some strange stares, Supervisor Noble is making the indication that the compensation for the elected officials cannot be changed until the 2012 budget which is the election year. And I will say to the board tonight that I am confident that we can wait all day long or all year long or however long we want to wait for the AG's opinion. There are ample opinions that have come from our corporation counsel, others, and in my opinion, from the AG's office in the past that make it very clear you cannot change the compensation during the election year. So if it comes up on the county board floor, it is my intention to rule it out of order. I make that point this evening not for any other reason other than that is my position. I think it's very clear. I don't care when the AG's opinion comes. I think it is here. Brown County just did the same thing. That is the recommendation of their council up there and their opinion as well. It simply doesn't impact it. So that's the point with why I asked last night at the meeting to bring it up in December after the budget is passed, so we're not trying to debate those two issues, the budget and compensation for county supervisors, on the same evening. If you're inclined to do it, simply send me a little message, let me know that you want to bring sleeping bags, and I'm happy to do it. But I would suggest we plan for December. Any other supervisor reports? Seeing none, we will now go to the clerk.
County Executive Appointments, 31, Kathy Otto to serve on the Kenosha County Aging and Disability Resource Center Board.
Refer that appointment to Human Services.
32, Charles Burmeister to serve on the Kenosha County Veteran Service Commission.
Refer Mr. Burmeister, Human Services as well.
New business, ordinance first reading 2 required. Number 7, from Judiciary and Law, Finance, and Legislative Committees, an ordinance to repeal and recreate Section 4.401A of the Municipal Code of Kenosha County entitled Jail Maintenance Costs. Ordinance 8, from Land Use Committee regarding Edward Jr. and Sharon Grzeni, owners, Rebecca Deering, agent, requesting rezoning from R5 Urban Single Family Residential District to B2 Community Business in the Town of Salem. Submitted by Land Use Committee. Brunig, yes. Esposito, yes. Kohlmeyer, excused. Underhill, yes. Decker, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move ordinance number 8.
Ordinance 8 moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Esposito. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is located on the north side of 113th Street, approximately 165 feet west of the intersection of 276th Street. The rezoning would allow for the construction of a new restaurant and bar. The Town of Salem recommended approval of the request.
Anyone on the issue? Ordinance number 8. Seeing no lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Ordinance 8 carries.
Ordinance 9 from Land Use Committee regarding Land Use Committee sponsor Kenosha County owner requesting rezoning from PR1 Park Recreational District, I1 Institutional District, C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District, and C2 Upland Resource Conservancy District to PR1 Park Recreational District, C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District, and C2 Upland Resource Conservancy District in the Town of Brighton. Brunig, yes. Esposito, yes. Kohlmeyer, excused. Underhill, yes. Decker, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move ordinance number 9.
Ordinance number 9 moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Underhill. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is located on the west side of State Highway 75, which is 248th Avenue, approximately 3/4 miles north of the intersection of State Trunk Highway 142. The rezoning is considered a map amendment to reflect actual field conditions, and the Town of Brighton recommended the approval of the request.
Anyone on the issue? Seeing no lights, all those in favor of ordinance number 9 vote yes. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Ordinance 10 from the Land Use Committee regarding Land Use Committee sponsor Kenosha County owner requesting rezoning from R4 Urban Single Family Residential District and R5 Urban Single Family Residential District to R4 Urban Single Family Residential District, R5 Urban Single Family Residential District, and C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District in the Town of Salem. Submitted by Land Use. Brunig, yes. Esposito, yes. Kohlmeyer, excused. Underhill, yes. Decker, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move ordinance number 10.
Ordinance 10 moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Decker. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These properties are located within Salem Oaks, Sepix Cross Lake, and Camp Lake Oaks subdivisions. The rezonings reflect actual wetland field conditions, and the Town of Salem recommended approval of these requests.
Thank you. Anyone on the issue? Seeing no lights, all those in favor of ordinance number 10 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Policy resolution, first reading to required. One, from the Finance Committee, a resolution regarding use of procurement credit cards. Resolution 62, from Extension, Education, and Finance Committees regarding UW Extension 2010 budget modification after school project, submitted by Finance Committee. Clark, yes. O'Day, yes. Jeff Gens, yes. Singer, yes. Eckerness, yes. Extension Committee, Johnson, yes. Hallman, yes. Grulich, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes.
All right, I failed in Supervisor Johnson's absence to see who was going to present this. Supervisor Hallman, are you prepared? Supervisor Hallman.
Move Resolution 62.
Resolution 62, moved by Supervisor Hallman, seconded by Supervisor Clark. Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution will move money from other professional services to the salaries and benefits line item. When the after-school project funds were originally received, it was thought that the coordinator would be a university student employee. However, the coordinator has been hired on a short-term limited project position. The person is only in the position as long as there are after-school project funds from Kenosha Unified School District. And as you can see in the third whereas, the county levy will remain unaffected by this budget amendment.
Thank you. Anyone on the issue? Seeing none, this is a budget modification, requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor signify by saying P and plus. Those opposed, P and minus. One more. Supervisor Clark. Take your time. Motion carries 26-0.
Resolution 63, from Finance Committee regarding appointment of Carolyn Budwick to the Kenosha County Library System Board, submitted by Finance. Clark, yes. O'Day, yes. Jeff Gens, yes. Singer, yes. Eckerness, yes.
I move
Supervisor Clark.
I move Resolution 63.
Resolution 63, moved by Supervisor Clark, seconded by Supervisor O'Day. Supervisor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an appointment to the Kenosha County Library Board system. Ms. Budwig is a resident of Pleasant Prairie, longtime resident of Kenosha County. She has her resume and her information is attached. You will see that she has a long history of being involved with school-related issues, PTO. She sometimes serves as a substitute teacher. She was recommended to the county executive by Michael Polikoff, village administrator for Pleasant Prairie, as well as a reference of Monica Uhas, who's a village trustee in Pleasant Prairie. I would urge your support. Thank you.
Anyone on Resolution 63? Seeing no lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Resolution 64, from Highway and Parks and Finance Committees, a resolution to approve acceptance of additional FEMA and State of Wisconsin funds for FEMA flood disaster 1768 declared on June 27, 2008, and modify the 2010 capital improvement budget. Elverman, yes. Noble, yes. O'Day, yes. Underhill, yes. Gale Gens, yes. Clark, yes. O'Day, yes. Jeff Gens, yes. Singer, yes. Eckerness, yes.
Supervisor Elverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Resolution 64.
Resolution 64, moved by Elverman, seconded by Clark. Supervisor Elverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This resolution is actually two in one. Basically, it initially allows us to accept FEMA and state money for flooding that occurred in 2008. The approximate award, if you add the two numbers together, it doesn't come up to the estimated in the flood disaster declaration monies, but it is estimated $108,313. This money would be used for repair of cart paths at our golf courses. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned a resolution that I had disagreed with coming out of our committee that was going to finance on the savings of $180,000 in our golf cart purchases. Our committee has reviewed that resolution again and reconsidered the initial resolution, and finance concurred with us. The second part of this resolution asks to take $750 from that unspent money as the county's match to FEMA and the state or the monies that we need to obtain this $108,000, 313, so that we can get paving done yet this fall. And it also allows for $38,750 to come from the $180,000 in savings on the purchase of our golf carts. That $38,750 would finish a project for irrigation that is much needed at Petrifying Springs, and that is the shortage. So as a compromise with my committee and an agreement by the Finance Committee, and so I would urge your approval. That leaves us the $142,000 approximately from last year's CIP on the purchase of the golf course to be dealt with in this year's budget. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor. Anyone wishing to speak on the issue? Anyone on Resolution 64? Supervisor Rose.
The question I have is with respect to the $142,000, may that be used for any purpose in the forthcoming 2011 budget consideration?
Supervisor Elverman?
Boy, if you ask me, I would say it had to be used in highways, parks, and golf.
If it helps, Supervisor Clark would like me to ask him.
Well, go right ahead, because I'm a little tired.
Supervisor Clark.
It is a capital project that we haven't expended all the funds for, so, I mean, it would have to be, if it's used for another purpose, it would have to be repurposed or reprogrammed by the county board, but likely we have the choice of using it on the golf course and reprogramming that, or using it to pay down debt, is my understanding.
All right, we could not use it then for operations?
As capital funds, there are specific legal requirements that we must follow. I don't believe you'll be able to use it for operations, no.
So you could use it to pay down debt, though?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be a prescribed opportunity with that money as bonded dollars. Any other questions? If not, as a budget modification, Resolution 64, if you're in favor, P and plus, opposed, P and minus. Motion carries 26-0.
Resolution 65 from Human Services Committee, a resolution to approve the appointment of Cynthia Johnson as Director of the Division of Health. Rose, yes. Jeff Gentz, yes. Arrington, yes. Gable, yes. Celebrity, yes.
Supervisor Rose. Sorry.
I would move the resolution 65.
Resolution 65, moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Jeff Gintz. Supervisor Rose.
Thank you. Cynthia Johnson is the nominee for this position, and she is here this evening. She was hired by Kenosha County in 1988 as a public health nurse. In 1994, she became the Assistant Director of Nursing and then the Director of Nursing in 2006. Her 22 years of experience with Kenosha County and her knowledge of this division of health is outstanding, and she had received the unanimous support of the Human Services Committee. We urge your support this evening.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Grady.
Through the chair to Supervisor Rose, who is being succeeded here?
Supervisor Rose.
Mr. Matteo.
That's it? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other supervisors wishing to speak? Seeing no lights, all those in favor of Resolution 65 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Resolution
Motion carries. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Resolution 67 from Human Services and Legislative Committees, a resolution regarding... Am I? Sorry. Sorry, my apology. 66 from Human Services and Finance Committee, a resolution to modify Division of Aging and Disability Services 2010 budget to add Department of Justice funding. Human Service, Rose, yes. Jeff Gentz, yes. Celebrity, yes. Gable, yes. Arrington, yes. Finance, Clark, yes. O'Day, yes. Singer, yes. Jeff Gentz, yes. Eckern is yes.
As the clerk was just a bit ahead of me, I'm going to take a moment to say congratulations to Ms. Johnson. All the best to you. Resolution 66, Supervisor Rose.
Thank you, and I would move the resolution.
Resolution 66, moved by Rose, seconded by Clark. Supervisor Rose.
This is a $350,000 grant for a 3-year period, which ends September 30th of 2013. The purpose of the grant is to implement further the drug court that we have here in Kenosha County, which is headed by Judge Milosauskas. It is in collaboration with the District Attorney's Office, the Public Defender's Office, the Probation and Parole, and the Sheriff's Department. Currently, there are some 13 people who are participating in the drug court. This funding will be used to hire a contracted part-time coordinator to assist in the development of a database, drug court and alcohol testing and treatment, and also for the attendance at a national training seminar.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Anyone wishing to speak on Resolution 66? Seeing no lights, it is a budget modification. Roll call vote. If you're in favor of Resolution 66, P and plus. If you're opposed, P and minus. Passes 26-0.
Resolution 67, from Human Services and Legislative Committees, a resolution regarding county nursing homes in the 2011-2013 state biennial budget. Human Service, Rose, yes. Jeff Gentz, yes. Celebrate, yes. Gable, yes. Arrington, yes. Legislative, Kubicki, yes. Haas, yes. Hallman, yes. Ron Frederick, Boyd Frederick. There's no check, but I'm assuming yeses.
Supervisor Rose.
I would move the resolution.
Resolution 67, moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Kubicki. Supervisor Rose.
This resolution is a rather important financial benefit to Kenosha County. It was once called the Intergovernmental Transfer Program, and annually Brookside receives money from the state government as part of the state budget. It helps to offset costs and losses, and there has been some discussion in the past that the program be eliminated, as all counties don't have nursing homes. This resolution before you is twofold. First, it requests the governor and the state legislature in this forthcoming 2011-2013 budget to support a change to what is now known as the Supplemental Payment and Certified Public Expenditure Program, which formerly had the name Intergovernmental Transfer. Neither name probably makes a lot of sense to one, and certainly hides what it's all about. But it annually distributes a substantial sum of money. In this case, it would be $39.1 million in each fiscal year. And this resolution calls upon the governor and the state legislature to distribute the money to the counties at least at that level. Right now it states up to that level, and it of course also urges them to sustain the program, which I say in the past has come under attack from a number of state legislators. The second point of the resolution asks for a statutory change requiring the state of Wisconsin to share equally the federal match dollars received by the state as a result of the county nursing home losses. So both of these points, while perhaps obscure to most of you, are very important to the financial welfare of Brookside. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Any discussion? I have one question, Supervisor Rose,
yes,
if I may. I don't see anything in the resolution that is recommending support of a bill or a position or a resolution from WCA that's currently supporting this issue. Are we in fact doing that, or is this something that we're...
Good point. This is a resolution which has been circulated by WCS to the various counties, urging that the counties adopt the resolution so that they can present it on behalf of the Wisconsin Counties Association as a unified force, or at least unified amongst those who receive it. So this, the origin of this, according to the director of Brookside, is Wisconsin Counties Association.
Thank you. Anyone else on the issue? Seeing no lights, all those in favor of Resolution 67 signify by saying aye. Those opposed, resolution carries.
Resolution 68 from Judiciary and Law Enforcement Committee regarding probationary cabaret license for Siebert's Pub, submitted by Judiciary and Law. Michael, yes. Haas, yes. Johnson, yes. Singer, yes. Ron Frederick, yes.
Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move resolution number 68.
Resolution 68 moved by Supervisor Michael, seconded by Supervisor Haas. Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a probationary cabaret license for Siebert's Pub located at 8403 Antioch Road in the town of Salem. As stated within the packet, there has been a investigation done by the Sheriff's Department. All the investigations came back positive. There was excuse me, also attached is the liquor license. I urge your support for this resolution. Thank you.
Anyone on the issue? Seeing no lights, all those in favor of Resolution 68 signify by saying aye. Those opposed, Resolution 68 carries.
Resolution 69 from Judiciary and Law Enforcement Committee regarding probationary cabaret license for Icky Ricky's Tavern. Michaels, yes. Haas, yes. Johnson, yes. Singer, yes. Ron Frederick, yes.
Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move resolution number 69.
Resolution 69 moved by Michael, seconded by Supervisor Johnson. That can't be possible, no, can it? Supervisor Haas. Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated, this is Icky Ricky's Tavern located at 8726 38th Street in the town of Summers. Again, this would passed all the requirements by the Sheriff's Department, and attached is its license. I urge your support for this establishment. Thank you.
Anyone wishing to speak on Icky Ricky's? Seeing no lights, all those in favor of Resolution 69 signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Resolution 70 from Judiciary and Law Enforcement Committee regarding probationary cabaret license for Cross Lake Inn. Michael, yes. Haas, yes. Johnson, yes. Singer, yes. Ron Frederick, yes.
Supervisor Michael.
And I move resolution number 70.
Resolution 70 moved by Supervisor Michael, seconded by Supervisor Singer. Supervisor Michael.
Again, this is a probationary cabaret license for Cross Lake Inn, located at 124 25th in Antioch Road in the town of Salem, Treva, Wisconsin. Again, this was, it's passed all its requirements from the Sheriff's Department. I urge your support for this resolution.
Thank you, Supervisor Michael. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no lights, all those in favor of Resolution 70 signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Resolution 71 from Judiciary and Law Committee, a resolution to approve the appointment of Michael Tarasik to serve as a member of the Local Emergency Planning Committee. Haas, yes. Ronald Johnson, yes. Singer, yes. Frederick, yes. Supervisor Michael, you're not signed on here.
Mr. Chairman, I actually was a little late for our meeting. It had started. I don't know if you, I was going to, I would have voted yes to this individual.
It's a moot point at this. If you're prepared to move it, move the resolution. You vote it on the board floor and you're fine.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move resolution number 71.
Resolution 71 moved by Supervisor Michael, seconded by Supervisor Ron Frederick. Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a position that was, it's a vacant position for the Emergency Planning Committee. Briefly, Mr. Tarasik is a employee at Roundy's warehouse located here in Kenosha at off of 52nd Street. He is their safety supervisor. He is licensed and certified through OSHA. He does quite a bit of the work with ammonia and things like that from the warehouse. He does reside in Greendale, Wisconsin, but he commutes to work here in Kenosha. Reviewing his application, he's suitable for the position. He knows quite a bit about safety issues. As stated, he is an engineer. I urge your support for this appointment.
Thank you. Anyone on Resolution 71? Seeing no lights, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, Resolution 71 carries.
Resolution 72 from Judiciary and Law and Finance Committees regarding additional funding from Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force's Strategic Initiative for Overtime Support. Judiciary and Law, Michael, yes. Haas, yes. Ron Johnson, yes. Singer, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. Finance, Clark, yes. O'Day, yes. Jeff Gens, yes. Singer, yes. Eckerness, yes.
Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move resolution number 72.
Resolution 72 moved by Michael, seconded by Clark. Supervisor Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated within the resolution, this is a $9,000 grant from the federal government to support our KDOG unit. If I believe everybody is aware, KDOG is the acronym for the Sheriff's Department and the Kenosha Police Department, their joint task force, which basically goes after drug dealers and situations like that, working with our federal government. If you talk to the sheriff or the Kenosha police chief, they will tell you it's a very good use of resources, and I'd excuse me, I'd ask for your adoption of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on the issue? Resolution 72. Seeing no lights, this is a budget modification. If you're in favor of Resolution 72, P and plus, opposed, P and minus. One more. Supervisor, there we go. Resolution 72 carries 26-0.
Approval of the October 5th, 2010 minutes by Supervisor Rose.
Supervisor Rose.
I would move the minutes approval.
Moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Brunig. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Motion to adjourn. Supervisor Zerban, seconded by Supervisor Gable. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, we are adjourned.